probably one of the most destructive economic policies was in 1985, and I was just a 15-year-old boy at that stage. But when Paul Keating lifted capital controls, because what that meant was that banks could go offshore and borrow foreign debt. Now, in 1985, we had $8 billion in foreign debt. I say we, the four major banks. By 2008, they had $800 billion in foreign debt, right? And all of that, nearly all that money was lent against housing. So what that did was take the price of houses from 4 times earnings to 12 times earnings, and parents with questions. You'll appreciate this. Suddenly, you need 2 parents to go back to work to pay the mortgage, right? And that then led to the creation of the childcare industry. So 40 years ago, you'd get your neighbour or grandma or granddad or someone to look after your children. Today, of course, childcare is it's subsidised $15 billion by the federal government, and there'd probably be other things there as well. It is a big industry, but that all came about because we lifted capital controls. Now, the other thing is by 2008, when we had the $800 billion in foreign debt, it was the GFC, right? So what happened then, there was the risk of going to be a housing collapse. So they had to then change the rules for immigration. And what they said was, if you're a student, you can buy a house while you're living in Australia. So of course, wealthy people from many other countries saw this as an opportunity to go and buy real estate in Australia. And that is why then since 2008, you've seen the university sector really take off in regards to foreign students. That all comes back to propping up the debt that was created by that bubble back in 1985.
Makes sense.
Yeah, because so when I was at Bank of Queensland, we were 60% foreign funded. So what that meant was, when Keating lifted capital controls in 1985, the only money that a retail bank could lend out was the money that other people saved. So as you got older, pensioners and retirees, whatever, they would have, or even in your working career, you would put your savings, this is before superannuation, you would put your savings in your bank. The bank would then take those savings and lend it out, okay? And what that meant was that the amount of money they could lend was tied to the amount of money people saved. So we could never live beyond our means. Does that make sense? Whereas if, and you can relate to this if you're an 18-year-old and a bank was irresponsible and they gave you a $100,000 credit card, and you could go overseas and take a Kentucky trip and all this other stuff, you could blow it all up in a heartbeat, right? So this is what they were irresponsible. By lifting capital controls, they allowed this debt bubble to be created, and then we're paying for it now. So the first generation loved it, right? Because they made a killing on asset appreciation, right? But now we're coming into the stage where the next generations, and especially younger children, they just can't afford a house, and it's killing them, right?